Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have rRootage Reloaded, an abstract boss rush shoot 'em up. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Kenta Cho, rRootage originally released for the PC. It would also see a port to the iOS platform. Now, courtesy of publisher Prevere, it's available on the Nintendo Switch. So this is a title I feel has an excellent taste, and I encourage you to check it out. If you're not familiar with developer Kenta Cho, he develops all these smaller, usually retro-styled titles that are available on PC. I'll include a link to a site below. It's actually really interesting to check out just how much he has on that site, and all of his titles that he's released are available on his site for free, including this one. So if you're interested in checking this one out on PC, that's definitely one way to do it. But the Switch port is decent, although it does have a couple drawbacks, and I'll get to that in just a moment. Diving into the game itself, as I mentioned, this one is a boss rush title. We have 40 different stages, all with different bullet hell style boss rush patterns, which provides a ton of gameplay, but that's not where it ends. So you've got 40 stages, but you have 4 modes that you can play those 40 stages in, basically equating to about 160 different stages, different ways you can go and play through this game. So at the price point that they're selling this one for, the value there is insane. So let's talk a little bit about the modes itself. So the game does have a normal mode. This is just your basic mode. We're not going to go and get into that just in the interest of time, though I will kind of explain a little bit of what's going on with that. So there's first off, we've got the Psy mode. This is a really interesting mode based off of Cyvarrior that's based all around the concept of bullet grazing. Then the next mode we have is the Eeka mode. This one is probably my favorite, and the one that this one's based off of is Ikaruga. So you've got like the polarity mechanic that Ikaruga has. And the last mode that this game supports is GW mode, Giga Wing mode. This is basically your reflect mode, where you're reflecting enemy bullets back at them to deal additional damage. So it's really neat that we've got homage to these 3 modes, or 3 games in there. And first off, we'll show you the Psy mode, starting with stage 1B. So the controls themselves are relatively basic. You always have a fire button, which is actually bound to quite a few different buttons on your standard Switch configuration. So we can get access your shot with the left trigger, the right trigger, the Y button, and the A button. So you've got options galore. And one thing that's kind of interesting about this one is kind of the control scheme. Since things are relatively basic, the game is set up in such a way that you can play it even touchscreen, since it has had a mobile port. It was kind of clunky when I tried it, but it is nice that there is an option for that. So in addition to your shot button, there's also a special button, and that special button will be different depending on what mode you're playing the game in. So in normal mode, for example, it would set off this bomb that just basically provides a little a shell from where you set it off that clears enemy bullets. However, in Psy mode, it activates spin. So what do we in order to kind of really give you a good idea of what that does, we need to talk a little bit about what we've seen here in Psy mode. So as I mentioned, Psy mode's primary purpose is the bullet graze mechanic. So in the bottom right there, we have a meter that as we graze enemy bullets, that meter builds. If we hold down our special button, we happen to also have a little bit of focus movement, so we move a little bit slower, and it also increases the range at which we can graze bullets. So once we fill that meter on the bottom right, we have a momentary period of invulnerability activated, thus allowing us to survive even more insane bullet hell patterns. It's actually really fun just to kind of go through and dodge the bullets, build up that meter, and then when things go missable, just dive through them. Of course, the whole point of this is we're defeating the boss at the same time, so it's probably best to be holding down the fire button while you're engaging in that. It is also possible to get faster movement by tapping the special button on that, just something to note. Although most of the time I feel like focus is the way you're going to want to go, as all these boss battles are basically bullet hells. And that's basically what we have for the Psy mode. So each of the 40 boss rush stages has a total of 5 bosses that you'll defeat. So we're on the 4th boss of stage 1B. We should be able to go and take him out if we're relatively diligent about fighting him straight on. Some of the modes you'll go through the stages faster than others, as this one is more based around the bullet grazing for both points and survival, whereas others, their mechanics are more offensive in nature. And we'll see that very shortly as when we jump to Eeka mode. Alright, so here we find ourselves back at the main menu. So, so let's talk a little bit about what I don't like about the title. I feel like, and this is probably based off of the original, which for what the game is would be fine, but for a reloaded or remastered port of it, I wish they would have made things a little bit clearer. So you change the mode of the game by changing the which one of these squares at the top of this grid you've selected. So N, of course, is your normal mode, P for the Psy, I for the Eeka, and G for the GW mode. Then you select your stage from the grid, and in the bottom left there you also have settings, which doesn't have much, just bullet time on, smooth joystick, but changing it to I will be our Eeka mode. So one thing this game does not do, there's no tutorial, there's no instruction manual to tell you what any of these modes do. You're basically left to your own devices to figure out what's going on. In addition to that, there's no easy way to return to the main menu. When you pause in a playthrough, you just simply pause the game. The only way you're going to quickly get back to the main menu, if you don't want to play all the way through a stage, is to let yourself run out of lives and get a game over. That's not ideal in my mind. Anyway, so this is now Eeka mode. Starting stage 2C, you can see that we have a white square, or not square, circle surrounding our ship. So that means we're white polarity. If we happen to hit white shots, we turn those into lasers that fire back at the boss itself. Pretty neat. If we hit our special button, we flip to the red polarity. There is a brief moment where we have no polarity on that, or rather where you would be vulnerable while switching polarity, so that is something to keep in mind. But it's really fun to kind of just pick a path, pick an area where we have lots of enemy shots, flip polarities, and just go to town on damaging the boss. It's a really fun, efficient way to take out, or rather, like where time is one of the main elements, it's just a really fun way to figure out the best lines you can pick to finish out the bosses as quickly as possible, and then we move on to the next stage. Some bosses are definitely like funner than others, so this mode is, I mean, especially if you're a fan of the Eeka titles, or rather Eeka itself, and titles similar to it, this mode is definitely going to be a joy to play. But admittedly, that kind of gameplay isn't always for everybody. Still, this is the one that I've found myself enjoying the most, just picking, like, or just sitting down and trying to pick your best lines, your best paths to destroy these bosses. And in a lot of ways, like, playing this mode was when I first got that, I see what's going on with this title, and well, it was where my enjoyment for this fun little boss rush game really started to build. But really, even with normal mode, I've had a lot of fun with all the modes that this game happens to offer. It's just fun to kind of sit down and play through the stages and see how well you can do. One unfortunate thing though is you're basically setting these scores while you're clearing the stages. There is not any online leaderboards though, so you're just basically challenging yourself to hit the best high scores that you can. Alright, so we're going to hop back to the main menu. And let's take a look at the last of the 3 unique modes, the GW mode, the Gigawing mode. So as I mentioned, the Gigawing mode is all about reflecting enemy shots back at the boss. So this one, it's probably the most challenging and technical of them, and that's due to some of the timing of the mode itself. So we'll be showing off a stage 4A for this one. Starting the mode itself, so the important thing to note is in the bottom right corner there, we have a meter. When the meter is in the state that it is in right now, okay, pressing our special button will start to deplete that meter. Once it's fully depleted, we have a little orb that surrounds our ship for a moment, and that orb will allow us to reflect shots back at the enemy. Once the effect has worn off, there'll be a burst where any shots in that burst will be reflected back at the enemy, so you kind of want to position that in such a way that you can get as many shots as possible in that last burst, dealing as much damage as you can to the boss. So it sounds really awesome, but there are a couple disadvantages. So the activation time to activate your reflection shield is notable. It does take a couple seconds to drain that meter to the point where you actually are reflecting shots, and then once you've used that ability, it takes a little bit to recharge the meter as is. It does recharge by itself, so you don't have to do anything specific. It just takes time. So you want to pick your timing carefully, as it were, just to most effectively deal damage to the enemy and guarantee your own survival. And those are the 3 modes that we have that are unique past the normal mode. The normal mode itself is unique as well, as I mentioned earlier. Instead of any kind of grays or reflection mechanics, it's just all about survival. Using the bomb will set off, or rather using the special sets off a bomb which deals, it doesn't deal damage, it just clears enemy shots. Basically allowing you to go and survive through these awesome and crazy bullet hell patterns. And that's one of the things that I really like about this particular title, is it's got 40 stages with 5 bosses per stage, and they all have these awesome, unique, and sometimes just ridiculous bullet hell patterns. It's really so satisfying if you're a fan of that kind of gameplay. So especially if you're a fan of bullet hell shoot 'em ups and boss rush titles, this one is a no-brainer. But even if you're not, this is one that you can go and check out on the developer's website for free, and then if you like that, you can pick it up on your Switch and have it portable, so you have it on the go. And really, the presentation here is great, barring the fact that there are some UI issues with the game itself. So let's talk about our minus flavors and plus flavors for the title. So the big minus flavor I had is, as I mentioned, I just have some issues with the port being relatively bare bones. It doesn't really have any kind of tutorial, it doesn't explain much of what's going on. You just have to figure it out for yourself, or look it up online, really. In addition to that, when we pause, this is all we, well, you can't see because the pause is actually covered by bullets, but this is all we get. I don't have the ability to go back to the menu, and that's something that's a little frustrating when you're trying to check out all the facets of the title, and well, it's just a bit problematic, time-consuming, and it just doesn't feel good when the only way to easily get back to the main menu and shoot 'em up is to self-destruct until you have no lives left and you get a game over. In addition to that, so some of the stages have some really good music to them, but others, the music just kind of gets repetitive and drones on. It's the same song for the stage that you're fighting. So, like, particularly the A set of stages, I don't really like the track all that much, but some of the B and C stages, I do like the music track they've got, so that one's kind of hit or miss. As far as the plus flavor, just all the modes and how like much thought has gone into them. So the homage to Eeka, the homage to Cybaria, the homage to Gigawing, I really appreciate seeing those titles get like such awesome recognition in a title like this. And then you've got all those stages, all those bosses, and the sheer value that's presented here. Admittedly, like, you can't beat free, but at the same time, it's pretty satisfying to have a title like this available to play on the go on your Switch as well. So that's a huge plus for me. And I've just really enjoyed my time with this title. It's one that I can definitely recommend, especially for those that are fans of bullet hells and the particular titles that this game plays homage to. Well, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. Before I go, there's one like fun little factoid I do want to go and throw in there. This happens to go and be my 365th Shoot 'em Up Saturday. So yes, that means that if you wanted, you could watch an episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday for every day for an entire year. It's actually like when I initially started doing this, I didn't think I would go and get to the 7-year mark, but here we are. So for those of you that have been around for any length of time, especially if you've like made it to like the end of this video, I want to go and say, like, really from like the like bottom of my heart, like with the greatest appreciation, thank you for the support. It really does mean the world to me. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode then. I want to thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.